She has a lot of experience. So I'd like to welcome Terry Christian. Um, she's got a lot of experience and 25 years and a lot of certifications. She's very knowledgeable in designing and delivering operating models to help organizations compete. She developed a digital operations model, and she began her career as a BA and a management consultant. Her capabilities are in strategic advisory, and she has more than 2 decades of experience in um, executing, coaching, consulting, and training. And she does lots of presentations. So I'm sure she's going to deliver a great one for us tonight. So and then there is in this agenda, which is posted on our IABA site, the Sac Valley IABA site, there's a link where you can connect with Terry if you would like to on LinkedIn. All right, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Terry.
All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. Yep. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of jump in. So tonight we're talking about the 5 levels of planning, usually planning, but we'll talk about it through the lens of digital product management. So really we're going to do this evening is start with a high level view. We're going to hit on a view for everybody. Let's put it that way. We'll start with a high level view, talk about the difference between a physical and digital product, how they're managed differently, some of the benefits and downfalls on both sides of that, talk through the levels of planning, and then talk about how the digital operating model supports digital planning or digital product management. And then I'll share a game with you that we've developed and have used with several clients over the years. Basically will it helps teams play a game, but also learn about the different levels of agile planning. And then finally, I'll share with you also basically I call it a workbook, but it's really detailed down to the nitty-gritty level of, what roles do what sorts of things at each level of planning. That PDF will be available to you. The PDF of the infographic I'll be sharing right now will be available to you. I also have a book called Digital Operations that will be available as well. And then also within the workbook, there's directions on how to play the game. The game is free, so if you find you want to play it with your teams, it's fun and educational at the same time. My style is more, I'll just start talking and explaining and talking through what we have. And if you have questions, please go ahead and stop. Feel free to ask questions. I will try to make room and space for people to ask questions, but I don't have that we have to get through X by this time. I think it's more important that people get value out of the discussion rather than me trying to march along to my own agenda items. So feel free to ask questions. I'm not really sure how these usually go, so just want to let you know that. So before I get started, any questions or any confusion about, even before we even jump in, any questions anybody wants to ask? Start sharing then. Okay, great. I haven't used Zoom for a little while, so bit rusty. There we go. So can everybody see a screen that's got at the top of it? Yep, says digital product management. Says you see it now.
Yep, we see it.
All right, great. All right, so this is first off an infographic at a very high level that starts to think about the comparison between physical products and digital products. So we all know what physical products are. We use them every day in our life. And they're produced using what we call a complicated system. So the system, has different pieces to it, has a supply chain and assembly line, but it's not overly complex. We can see the system, we can touch it, it's visible, it's predictable, and it's got a way we work that system in a traditional way. And also it's a slow system. It's not a system that works overly quickly. It relies on lagging indicators to respond to emergent customer needs. Meaning, if we're building a car, it takes a while to build that car, and then when they produce the car and put the car on the market, then they start gathering information about whether or not they're achieving their return on investment for that car. So that's kind of like the physical products and how they're managed. Then we have the digital. So digital is a little bit different. It's a complex system. And the system that we use to develop digital and produce digital products, meaning something, an app or something that's not actually physically that we can touch. This is done in a very complex manner because we're dealing with communication, we're dealing with people, we're dealing with feelings, we're dealing with emotions a lot more than what you would do in a physical production line environment. Not that people don't have feelings in that production line, but there's a much more of the communication skills and passing things off to people and shared mental models that you need to have in order for that system to work. Where the other system, because you can see you can see where things get stacked up. You can see bottlenecks. With the digital operating model, or digital products, it's much more difficult and there's a lot of different points. So we have to intentionally make that system visible, consistent, and predictable. And that's the difficulty that we have, is a lot of times we're not doing that. So we don't actually really understand how the entire system works, and that creates a lot of bottlenecks and rework and things like that. So but the digital operating model is fast, it's iterative, and it relies on leading indicators. So we can develop something, put it in somebody's hands, and test it much faster than building a car or building a physical product. So I'm just going to stop there. Any questions about those concepts? Okay, I'll keep going. All right. So how does change work in these two different types of models? The physical product system is slow and it's costly and change is disruptive. So if we want to make a change, for example, put a chip in a car to make it go faster, that requires a lot of change. We have to identify our vendors, how we're going to get that supply chain working so that we get the chip into our assembly line. How are we going to change our assembly line? And it's very expensive because we have to actually do physical changes and the machinery is very expensive. Where in a digital operating model, where we're developing digital products, it's fast, it's low cost, and it's business as usual. Like, we get change constantly. And people, unfortunately, because they can't see it, don't contemplate what the cost would be to make the change. So a lot of times people get flooded with change, and the assumption from leadership often, or from product management, is that's okay. It's digital. It's not going to be that big a deal. It's not that hard. But we know that it even though it is low cost to say I want to change this one thing, it's cheaper than the physical product, but it's also can cause a big problem if we're not managing that change. So the perception is it's fast, it's low cost, and it's business. Like, that's what we do. We change our minds, and then we go change the outcomes we're looking for. And then finally, in order to do this, the activities for the physical product production, they're very much like a visible supply chain assembly line, which I've already talked about a bit. They place an order, they assemble the parts, they ship it, they sell it, they place more orders, and it's more of that sort of iterative process that's physical and you can see it. Where in a digital operating model, it's shared mental models. We have to have a vision. We have to understand what that vision is. Then we've got to work together throughout the leadership team to create flow. So how will that work flow through the system? How will we ensure that the things that we need to do to enable that vision, that we have the right people in place at the right time to do the work? And then we need to measure the outcomes. Are we delivering things towards the desired results that are stated in the vision? And then finally, we have to build in an opportunity to change and learn, because we can only learn from the shared mental model that we have. We can learn from our customers, we can learn from their reactions and then change our vision. But this model is a little bit different than a physical model, because it's all about understanding how we work together and sharing that thought process. And a lot of times the only way to do that is through diagramming, which I'm sure a lot of BAs understand this. I was a BA for many years. Or for a while anyway, I told Steve before I started as an engineer, and they thought I'd be a better business analyst after 6 months. So, but that's the work of a BA. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity, because I learned how to develop data flow diagrams and all kinds of different diagrams to help people understand, shared mental models and how work flows through the system. So I'll stop right there. That's just kind of setting the stage for the two different types of products and how they compare and contrast. Any questions or comments there? Right. Okay, then I'll go to the next piece. So I did use the example of a faster car. So we have the 5 levels of Agile planning. The first one is vision, and I touched on it above. But vision is really like, if you want a faster car, then we kind of should know our market. We should know what they want. The needs are fairly predictable. We might have to change our supply chain. Our assembly line would have to change, but the operations would kind of remain stable. It wouldn't be as disrupted. It's disruptive as far as changing the assembly line and supply chain, but our org's not going to change. So your return on investment for a faster car are really calculating the changes you have to make against the profits that you believe you'll make. So that's the return on investment for that vision on the physical product side. On the digital product side, we need to change to emergent customer needs. So we don't actually have that predictable environment. We don't know what our customer needs, and often they don't know what they need. So if we think about what Henry Ford said, if I asked people what they wanted, they would say faster horses. We have to probe our customers and understand what are their desires, even though they can't necessarily give us the actual solution, but we need to always be ready to respond to emergent customer needs in that digital world. So we have to be able to establish customer value. We need to do prototypes and MVPs. We need to test early and often, and then develop the business increments that we would need in order for us to quickly test, are we going in the right direction? So those business increments are tied to business metrics, so KPIs or customer satisfaction or those sorts of things. And then you've got to communicate that vision and the change that needs to be made throughout the organization. So there's a lot of investment that goes into testing out an emergent customer need before we even start building or really firm up, are we going in the right direction? Any thoughts or questions on this piece? You guys are quiet.
Actually, a
there's-
question on this.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
please.
Thank you. A question with relative to product management. And the core of product management, is it merged from the product backlog, or essentially a mission and a vision, sort of planning, and then come from that you build personas for who the users of the product will be and how to delight the customers, essentially, or like or is it like just like you said, more emergent, that's what matters the most?
It's a balance. I'll say that, but I will say that what I'm kind of showing you here is the ideal world. What I see is oftentimes we want to go ahead and race forward and not consider the return on investment. So I don't often, this tool I'll show you that we use is to help leaders understand, before you start to start building, putting things in a backlog, for example, you need to test. You need to do, you know, MVPs and prototypes in order to test before, you know,